joining us. We're going to talk all about cold brew coffee. And the guy that founded this company, Cold Brew Coffee Company, is Gary Rincini. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I am so interested in hearing how you started a cold brew coffee company in April of 1916. How did this come to be?
So, really, I had a life-altering kind of health event slightly before that, within the last couple years. And
what was it? You got to tell us.
Sure. So, I've always been in the investment industry, and I was traveling for work in the summer of 2014. I came home to my new house in Cheshire, Connecticut. Didn't feel good, so I went to a hospital. Cut to the chase. A few days.
You say you don't like doctors, but you felt bad enough to go.
I hate doctors, and really, it was gastrointestinal.
There are some good doctors.
Yes, there are. I've learned that now. It was more gastrointestinal type stuff, to spare the details. But I went in for one reason, and then they took a blood test, and they said, well, we don't really care why you're here. We have to talk about this other thing. And I had, I guess, basically, the condition is called ITP. It's a mouthful to say, but it's idiopathic thrombocytopenia. Say it 3 times fast. Essentially, I have extremely low platelets, so I bleed and bruise really easily. After they discovered this, they didn't really understand what it was, frankly. So it was either you have a one-time random occurrence, could it be cancer, could it be an autoimmune disorder. I ended up at Dana-Farber Cancer Center about 3 days after that, towards the end of August in 2014. And kind of life forever changed.
You're 34 going on 35.
34, it was about a week before my 35th birthday.
And you hit a wall.
Brick wall, dead in my tracks. I had just moved. My oldest son had just turned 1 that July, and I had 1 due in October of 2014. And life just got crazy, really flipped upside down. And at the end of the day, I'm not afraid to say this now, I just couldn't cope with things very well. And I kind of was battling with depression. And it's one of those weird things, if you talked to me before that, I would have never, I don't know what depression was.
Sure.
And then, like, you kind of had brick wall. For some reason at that time, one of the things I loved making and I got really into was coffee.
Did you quit your job right away? What happened?
I didn't quit my job.
Did you walk away from it?
Things just weren't working out. My performance, frankly, wasn't good. I just wasn't really fit to be kind of in the corporate space at that point in time. And we just parted ways with the company that I was at. And
so you're not feeling well, but you're making coffee at home.
I'm making coffee in the sense that, what, I wake up and I make coffee, and I started learning a lot about coffee, and I started ordering this beautiful coffee from all over the world, single estate, single origin type things. For the coffee lovers out there, they'll understand what all those terms mean.
What is your wife thinking as you start to order all this coffee? What's going on?
She is like, this guy can barely get off the couch, but yet he's loving coffee. I don't get what's going on. God bless her for sticking with me through all this. I mean, the house looked like, a little coffee shop. I had pour-over devices. I have coffee coming in almost daily, being delivered by FedEx or UPS or you name it. And so towards the end of 2014, one day I read about this idea online about cold brewing coffee. And I was like, oh, that seems interesting. I think I'm going to try it with this great, it's called the Sidamo. It's this Ethiopian coffee that I had. I'm going to try it with this. And
so did you brew it and then throw ice in it?
What I did was I just read this recipe online, and I'm kind of, old school. Like, I swear, my dad's from Italy, and I look at it from the cooking sense. We just eyeball it, and I read this recipe, and I'm like, we'll just figure this out. So I grinded up this coffee. I threw some water in it. I put it in, in really just a pot, and then about 24 hours later, I strained it all, and I just poured it right over ice, and I don't know, like, kind of light bulbs went off. And I was thinking, man, this stuff's really good. And at the time that I found out that I really loved this cold brew stuff, it kind of coincided with me getting myself back together and out into the workforce. And at that point, I was on the hunt for good cold brew coffee. And we're all from the Northeast, so, you're either a Dunkin' or a Starbucks person.
Or whatever else.
Or whatever else. And,
right.
But, in New Haven, like where we're sitting now, there's a ton of coffee shops. But once you get out to kind of the outskirts, there's not a ton. So it's like, man, I can't find anything I like. And it just so happens that, my father-in-law and my in-laws are, in the food business, and they had a location and, some space. And I started kind of harassing them and hassling them and saying, hey, if I put this together, partner with a roaster, figure it out, you know, can you either co-pack, you know, on my behalf, you know, I'll pay you, I'll create it all, but then once we have it down, you'll make it on my behalf, or, you know, I'm like, would you let me use your space? And they, you know, it was like a joke. And then one day my brother-in-law and I were eating dinner together at his house, and he kind of brought up the idea again as a joke, and I was like, at that point I was like, no, we're doing this now. And I just kind of, without really having a great understanding of, you know, what it is that I was doing, in the sense that I'm not historically in the coffee world. I'm not that guy.
You are now.
Now I am all in.
Now you think you're the only cold brew coffee company in the state of Connecticut?
Well, I think there's,
as far as distribution.
I think in terms of this amount of distribution that I'm capable of, I am certainly the only cold brew coffee company within Connecticut. And what makes me different is, you know, a lot of folks that do this, they do like kind of the hot coffee and then they do this. I'm not a coffee roaster. I don't own a coffee shop. I fell in love with cold brew coffee. I know what good coffee, or I should say great coffee, is. And I kind of just said, you know what, I want to be known for one thing. It's cold brew.
Well, I love the packaging. Why blue?
So when I thought about the idea of cold brew, it really comes two places. One, if anyone that watches this, if this is Italian, they'll understand the color blue. They've watched soccer. My dad's from Italy. I've watched soccer my whole life. Blue, it's kind of our thing. Happens to be my favorite color. And then when I started thinking about cold brew, I started doing a lot of market research and looking at what's out there. Everyone uses black and brown and these dark colors because, oh, that's the color of coffee beans. But cold brew's clean. It's brewed cold. And I'm like, blue just to me is my favorite color as it is. It just elicited a very nice feel. It represents, you know, cold, clean, pure. And that was really what I was going for when I used the colors. I want it to be a little bit different because by nature, most people that know me, I am a little different. I'm a little quirky at times. So I'm like, I wanted that to be a representation of me to a degree. So it's kind of all came together with the blue. And the name itself was also the other piece. I'm not the most funky guy. I'm pretty straightforward, pretty direct. And I'm walking through my house. I'm saying names of companies to myself. You know, in the state of Connecticut, there's a ton of craft beer. And there's,
sure.
and there's also, when you start looking at the coffee world, there's a lot of like craft coffee now. And everyone has these funky names. And I'm walking through the house from one side to the next. I couldn't come up with anything. And then I said to myself, Cold Brew Coffee Company.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's simple. It's straightforward. Yeah. It's kind of me.
Yeah.
And I ran right to the kitchen. I said to Chris is my fiance, I said, Cold Brew Coffee Company. She's like, I like it. It's you. I ran then beeline
is
to
the domain available?
So I ran right to the other side of the house where my home office is. Jumped on the computer. First LLC search. No one owned the name. Then it was domain search time. I locked in like 7 domains in like 3 seconds. coldbrewcoffeeco.com, which is the one I went with because it's short. Cold Brew Coffee Company. I have Cold Brew CC, but I'm like, so the name was just, I'm like, could it be that simple? And so far the answer is yes, it could be that simple. And that's kind of what I decided to go with.
All right, so you started in April. Did you start bottling in April of 2016?
Oh yeah, we just started. Well, before that, I was running some tests with my in-laws, and my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law were very instrumental in helping me do this.
Yeah.
You know, we started with 1 pound, then we started with 5 pounds, then we tried 15 pounds. And then I said, Joe, let's just go for 100. I have a new customer. I have my first customer. Let's just make it.
The Max Restaurant Group.
The Max Restaurant Group.
Has bought in.
Max Restaurant Group bought in, and J. Timothy's in Plainville. 2 very well-known restaurants, especially in the Hartford region. And I couldn't believe it. They tried my samples, and they were in. So I'm like,
how's it going?
You know what? I would say it's going, I'm tough on myself, so it could always be better, but good. I mean, I look at what we're doing. We're probably in 40 to 50 locations.
Have you started merchandising now as far as T-shirts,
Oh, if
hats?
you go on my website, I've gotten nuts. On the can, and you might not see this on the camera, there's little skulls embossed, sugar skulls, and those are actually a representation, a celebration of life. So it's not to be some like demonic thing, it's celebration of life, and everything that I went through, I kind of wanted something unique in the background. So I have all these t-shirts. If you go to my website, which is just coldbrewcoffeeco.com, I'm slowly merchandising, but you know, this is my focus, and we're learning every day. Online's different, face-to-face.
And how do you feel? Do you feel good with the disease that you have? Have you found a new life outside of corporate and your own CEO?
So I am working, so that's the funny thing. I still am kind of in my old job function, and I do this until the point where if anyone's watching, please buy it, because then I can go. I want to do this full time, but that's the goal. But you know, on the health side, I try not to think about it a ton. I mean, certainly I think about it enough and kind of know what I'm looking for. So I guess it's going as good as, you know, we can expect. Knock on wood, we're going on Wednesday.
Well, people who have been watching, I'm sitting here with this wine glass, not for wine, but for coffee. So let's open one. First of all, how much caffeine is in this?
I would, you know, I'm not going to give you an exact milligrams.
A cup of coffee?
Stronger than your normal cup. I will tell you this. This is coming from a guy that had, before I loved coffee for the taste, I liked coffee for the caffeine. You know, when you're in outside sales, man, you just want to be on the go. I was drinking like 5 Starbucks a day. It was bad.
Wow.
My bill was ridiculous.
Well, you were awake.
Well, you know what? So funny enough is I went from that to, these are 8-ounce single-serve cans, specifically to the can. I got to tell you, I drink one in the morning, I drink one in the afternoon, and I'm where I need to be.
And you're good to go.
Yeah, so it's, they're going to taste phenomenal, and I would say about 10 minutes afterwards, you're going to feel good, you're not going to be jittery and nuts, but there's enough caffeine to power you through really a good chunk of your day. And
you could water it down, more ice if you want to. All right, so there's a proper way to open these. Is that correct?
So there is. So on the back, I put little instructions, and it says, I believe it says shake and pour.
Yes,
so
it does.
These cans are infused with nitrogen. Very much, if you like beer, very much like what Guinness is. So we're going to shake this, we're going to open it, we're going to pour it into this glass, and what you should see is it should look creamy. There's nothing in it. This is a gorgeous black coffee in this can that comes from someone's estate in Colombia. And what it should look like, and you should see cascading going around of these nitrogen bubbles, as we'll call it. But let's do it. So we're going to shake it up.
All right.
This is where the mess comes in. I've got it down to a science. Not much of a mess when I make it now. So
it's a caramel color.
It's caramel, but if you look at it, it's kind of
foamy on the top.
Foamy on the top, and you see it cascading. And if you taste it now, it'll taste a little creamy.
Almost like a beer.
Absolutely, it has a nice little texture to it. If you try it, you'll notice it's a little foam.
It's going to foam more.
It's kind of going to just then leave a head. So you could start drinking it just as is. Right. It's kind of a classy way to drink our coffee. And it's very bright and smooth.
Very heavy on the coffee, but it's very good.
Yeah, it's different. It's the most different coffee experience that you can have, because what you're going to taste for the first time.
I love it in the wine glass.
That's how I drink it at home. It's crazy. I walk around with this. But what you're going to taste for the first time is the true taste of coffee. This comes from an estate in Colombia, that specific coffee.
This does not taste watered down.
No.
It tastes like coffee.
But it has a nice vibrancy to it. And as you sip it more and get used to it, you're going to taste other flavors in there, because coffee takes on flavors really easily. So you're going to notice a little chocolatiness, maybe a little like almost oakiness to this.
It's like you're talking about wine.
It really is. And that's kind of what coffee is, except we don't know it because we've been trained to get your Dunkin' or your Starbucks, put cream, your sugars. But meanwhile, when you start drinking this more, you're going to start tasting things like, that's coffee.
So you can put cream in this if you want.
Absolutely.
You can put sugar in it.
I will tell you, I fought the whole cream and sugar thing for the longest time, and then my great friend Scott Brown, without him, some of this isn't possible. He worked 22 straight weekends with me at the Coventry Farmers Market, and he's helped me deliver countless number of boxes and cases to restaurants. And we would go to the Farmers Market in Coventry, which is massive. 3,000 people come through in 3 hours. And I'm like, I got into this kind of for health reasons. I love it black personally. I love the way it tastes. And he's like, listen, dude, not everyone drinks their coffee that way. So so when you see me at an event, it went from just having bottles at the time. This season will be cans and bottles. And it was just that. It was just that, ice and cups. Now we got the cream, the sugar, the syrups. We have the, for the folks that like almond milk that don't do dairy. Now it's like, we bring everything.
See what you're learning, Gary? It's amazing.
Well,
overall, so you're just a few months into this business. What have you learned about yourself starting this business and doing this? What are folks telling you about your product?
I hear great things. I'm nervous even when you're drinking it in front of me, though. I mean, I'm so hard on myself. I'm like, I hope Ann likes this. So I think, one, I've learned that I make a really good product. too, I think more than anything, and it sounds so pie in the sky with everything, this was kind of my avenue. It hit me at kind of the right time. But if you really want to do something, figure it out. You will find a way. Like I've never done this before. From this to the website to just really going out and talking to selling investments and selling to restaurants, vastly different things. But you know what? You just figure it out. And I think more so than anything, I'm very proud of that. I don't give myself that much credit. I don't stop to really think about this type of stuff that much, honestly, like, because I'm always just on to the next and trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But when you step back and I'm like, wow, 50 accounts. I started this all from literally from nothing with no background into this. And along the way, I've just kind of figured out how to make it happen.
I think you are an inspiration to innovators and entrepreneurs in the state of Connecticut. You're making this in Connecticut. You're bottling it in Meriden. I think the sky's the limit for you. And I think you're on to something.
You know what? We're going to knock on wood, and I hope that you're right.
Gary Rincini, thank you so much. All the luck in the world to you and your family. And it's the Cold Brew Coffee Company. Thanks again.
Spend all night kissing, and if Walter's right here, then who else is missing? Got a little sidetracked if I'm so wishing I found the keys to the door, but it's also a metaphor. Things keep locked in the grocery store, but mine just to save time. Skip right ahead to the last ride. The harder we look, the less we can see. Don't you know, you know, you know that you need me.